Hey there, thanks again for joining me on this live stream. I'm doing this every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, and I have been struggling for a long time with how to keep my workflow on a computer, since that's my main studio piece of equipment, but keep it really fluid creatively. And I wanted to share a perspective that, may be new to some of you and helps me get around this challenge of thinking in a free-flowing way as I am starting a new project. So I'm looking for ideas, I'm looking for ways to sort of engage my creativity, and then I have to reach for my mouse or I have to menu dive or something like that. And my left brain gets involved, and then it really diminishes the whole experience, but also I think gets in the way of my creativity. So I think we've all experienced this if we've done a fair amount of music production, where the computer is sometimes our best friend. It does amazing things, allows us to write multiple parts and play them back and hear these different ideas. It can also be our worst enemy because, when we want to be creative or just when we have that great idea, why isn't my instrument connected, or I have to do some MIDI routing or something like that. It's quite common, I think, for composers to run into this problem, and I think this is a graceful solution if you're a Cubase user. And if you're a Dorico user, which is something I cover a great deal here on my channel, then this is still a really great way to get your original ideas down. So one of the things that one of the areas where I find this the biggest challenge is when I'm doing film scoring and I'm watching a video and I may be getting creative ideas kind of on the fly, but I have to start thinking about, well, how do I put that into Dorico in eighth notes and quarter notes? What's the timing here? What's the key signature? And sometimes that really slows down and kind of ruins my creative flow, and it's frustrating for one thing. But it also, if I get frustrated, I don't make good musical choices. I'm not as creative. So this is a process for using Cubase to get over that hurdle if you've ever experienced that. So let me get started here. I am going to take myself off the screen. And I've got a Cubase project open here. This just has a piano instrument track is all I've got there. And I'm just going to basically, let's say I've got this idea. Let's say that's my idea. I want to record that. Maybe I want to record it. I'm not sure exactly what tempo I'm at. Maybe I'm watching a clip in Cubase, and I know that that's sort of a melodic idea that came to me. I don't really want to think about what tempo is it in. Don't want to think about what key signature it's in quite yet. I really just want to record the idea. But I also want the recording of that idea to somehow really feed into me actually having an actionable project, which means I have to be on a grid. I have to be in terms of measures and a time signature and stuff like that. So this is how I go about it. And this is using a tool called tempo detection, which is... thanks for that. Yeah, no buzz today. Using tempo detection in Cubase is the main tool here. So let's just look at this. So the first step is going to be, you start with Cubase project and you've got an instrument track with an instrument on it. Okay. So next step is we're going to just record, an idea here, and I'm going to hit record. Just like that. So now the thing that I've noticed here is, okay, I've got my idea recorded just as MIDI. Let me zoom in. The thing is that I either had to set the tempo beforehand and kind of commit to that, and it may not really be the way I'm feeling it, the way I'm vibing off the video or the cue or whatever. So recording straight into Cubase, sometimes this is, even this, which was super easy, is just not creative enough. It's not free enough. I can't just like go with whatever vibe I like, I have to follow the tempo or have the metronome on. So scrap that idea. I still have the same melodic idea. I want to turn, I don't want the metronome running. And what I'm going to use here is retrospective recording. So when you are in a MIDI event down here in Cubase, you'll see this little icon up here. It looks kind of like a moon. Insert MIDI retrospective recording. So what's happening there is ever since, I don't know, Cubase 10 or 9, or it's been around for a while, it records your MIDI in the background. And there's I've actually set up some buttons on my Stream Deck to clear the buffer so that when I have an idea I want to capture, I can do that. So let me show you how you do that, how you clear the buffer. I go up to the Edit menu and I go down to Key Commands. And if over in the Key Commands window here you just type in retrospective, you'll see the 4 retrospective options. I have set up empty all buffers and insert from MIDI inputs. I've set those 2 up as key commands, which I have then programmed onto my Stream Deck. So what I can do is I can just hit my button here to empty my buffer in case there is a buffer, in case Cubase has already captured something. That's a very kind of elegant way to do it. Now I'm going to just hit play, and imagine I'm watching a movie and I'm watching a video that I'm trying to score, and I'm going to bounce up here. So you don't see any actual MIDI in the project here, but it has been stored in my retrospective buffer. And if I hit my button on, I'm going to just go bounce up here to, let's say, bar 9. And I'm going to hit my insert retrospective MIDI, and there you go. That was the MIDI that I played. So let's listen to it back. At whatever tempo I wanted to record it, right? So this is like my own personal groove based on the video that I'm looking at. So this is a really important bridge where I'm having an emotional reaction to the film and I'm recording. I'm not locked into a tempo. I don't have a metronome distracting me. I'm just reacting emotionally to the video. And this is by far the best way, I think, to get the video, to get the music just to gel right. Okay, so now I've got this using retrospective MIDI recording, but I'm not on a grid, and that's the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this clip, and this again is something that I've dialed into a button on my loop deck, or sorry, Stream Deck. I used to use a loop deck. I switched back to my Stream Deck, but it's under the project menu. And there's this tempo detection. Now this is in Cubase Pro, so if you're not using Cubase Pro, this is not going to be there. It has selected, shows me Easy Keys 201. That is the part that it's going to be doing the analysis on. And when I click it and analyze, what's going to happen is it's created 2 tracks for me. It's created a signature track and a tempo track. And you can see it's created all these tempo markings. So that now if I go ahead and, well actually before I do that, I will just point out that it does switch me, it'll switch you to using the warp tool, as you can see from my cursor. And I don't usually, if you wanted to go ahead and warp stuff you could, I don't usually warp it at all. I just switch back to my object selection, at which time it always says, hey, if you switch back to this other tool, it's going to end this thing. Is that okay? I just hit continue. So don't be thrown off by that. Now, if I play this back with a metronome, check it out. The metronome fits what I played. There's a little bit of funkiness going on right there. So that might be an example of the kind of thing that I would use the warp tool to fix. And you can tell that there are some rather dramatic tempo changes here. I find that the tempo detection works best with stuff that is clearly rhythmic. So when I'm generating ideas using this approach, I do try to make sure my ideas are pretty steady rhythmically, and then I get the best results. The tempo marks that it creates are all going to work really well. It's going to flow. Okay, so at this point, what I have is my improvisation, more or less the way that I felt it. I do have a grid now, so if I were to export this to Dorico, then it's going to fit into measures and beats. One last thing I want to point out about this process is that it generally, Cubase will set it to 1/4 will be the time signature, which is kind of ridiculous. So you'll always hear the downbeat on each measure, or it's basically like. So typically what I'll want to do is just switch that back to 4/4. You want to keep an eye on that. And then so it fits into a grid now, and my tempo track down here that was created automatically has bridged the gap between my original performance here and the grid. So now I can go either export it to Dorico, where it's going to show up as measures and beats and bars for me to continue composing with, or I can work in here in Cubase and start laying stuff out on a grid, but I can start adding rhythmic things, ostinatos and things like that, and know that everything's going to fit into a grid. So that is the workflow in a nutshell. Thanks very much for joining me today. And I will be back this week, but also every Wednesday at noon. I'll see you there. And thanks again. If you have any questions, post them in the comments, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks again. Bye.